All right, welcome back, everyone. Once Upon a Phrase, Season 2, Episode 4. I'm your host, Jason.
And your other host, Lisa.
And wherever you're listening to us, Apple, Spotify, Google, what have you, please remember to subscribe. You get updates on the new episodes. Rate us, review us. All those things really help.
Also, don't forget to follow us on our Instagram page at Once Upon a Phrase.
And if you are in the Chicagoland area, Fat Chris's Pizza and such, I
So
mean,
delicious.
yeah, they're the only I can't even like promote this enough. They're the only place you need. They do specific, Detroit style pizza. So if you're from the Detroit area or pretty much anywhere in Michigan, it'll feel like home. But they also do Chicago thin crust, pan pizza, all the stuff. So if you're in the Chicago area, give them a try. If you're not in the Chicagoland area, because I know we have sponsor or listeners from everywhere else, um, and you do visit Chicago, give them a try.
So, some fun stuff. So, this season 2, we are releasing bi weekly episodes. Specifically, this week, we're doing a Wildcard episode.
Wildcard!
So, these are just a random bunch of phrases that we thought were quite interesting that we want to share with you. And as always, a new thing with season 2, submit your phrases on Instagram. If you have a phrase that you're itching to figure out what it means, we would love to add it to our listeners' requests for each episode. So please send us a message.
Yeah, specifically today's listener request is awesome. I'm excited to get to the end of the podcast to do it. But as Lisa mentioned, this is a wild card episode. So I'm also kind of excited for this one. If you guys, I'm sure we've talked about it before, but, we like to theme every episode. But there are some phrases we just come across that they don't fit a category or not enough of a category for us to give them a whole episode. So we do have an entire list we keep of just you know, random phrases. So we're gonna get through 4 of them today. Lisa, you want to get us started?
Yeah, so the phrase that I thought was quite interesting that I hear used, but I wasn't sure what it meant was in the nick of time. Are you familiar with that one?
Um, yeah, I mean, I know what it means. It means like right on time or like right before a deadline or
Right, so it refers to like a precise or critical moment.
I gotta ask though. Does this have anything to do with a man named Nick?
Nope.
No. Okay, I would have bet money on that. All right. So for
So
all of our listeners named Nick, this ain't about you.
So actually, the word nick itself was used to represent like a precise moment. Okay, so that in the nick was the original phrase. And it dates back to the 1500s. And it used to refer to performing, like you said, an action at a precise instant that it was due.
I'm still trying to think of a time when I've ever heard Nick be used as like a measurement of time.
Okay, so let me tell you how this works. So, have you ever been to someone's house and you notice, like in their doorway, maybe their kid's bedroom or maybe the kitchen, wherever they choose to do it, and there's little notches in the wall and there's little dates, or not dates, but years next to them with people's names?
No, like I know what like a nick is. Like I've moved plenty of furniture from places. I've nicked a lot of walls in my day. Is that what we're talking about? Like a nick, like a
Yeah, like a mark put in a
yeah,
wall
yeah.
to measure time.
Oh, I'm just making these connections. Okay.
So I know, like in my parents' house, we had the room leading from the back porch to the kitchen before I think they painted over at this point. But they had all these little nicks in the wall for where they measured us every year as to how tall we were. And it measures how time passed. Oh, this was when you were 5, when you were 6, and so
Yeah,
forth.
so we have that upstairs in our
Right.
son's room. We do that. So I would associate the nicks with the actual damage to the wall. Like this is a nick. But so you're saying that the nick is not the damage to the wall, but the measurement of time, like when you're the height of somebody or something. Oh, I
Yeah,
like
so it
this.
dates back to the 1500s. It was used in sports. I couldn't find much more in depth about that, but it was used in sports to track time, points, transactions.
Okay. It's got to be an old timey thing because even as a sports fan, it's not ringing a bell to me.
Right. It very old, like I said, 1500, so it dates back pretty far. I don't think it's a very common phrase to be used as some of the other ones we've learned about, but
Really, I would say this one is fairly common well, regardless, this is actually, I know we talked about this quite at length at the beginning of season one. Uh, Part of the thing I love about doing this podcast, especially with you, Lisa, is that you would say this is not a common phrase, and I'm saying it is a common phrase. And we've been together a long time. We're married. We live together. A lot of our life exists in the same bubble, and it's just not common to you, but it is common to me. So there are so many phrases that I bet when people listen to this show, they're either hearing for the first time, and then some where people are, hearing for the thousandth time. Um,
Right. So another interesting, yeah, I mean, I agree. It just depends on, I mean, especially us being in the same age, you would think that we would have the same influences and things that we've been exposed to. But so interestingly enough, in the nick of time, like I said, it referred to a precise or critical moment, but now it's more used, I wouldn't say negatively, but it's used to represent like barely avoiding a moment. Like if we're able to get to work in just the nick of time, it's like you just avoided being late.
so it's got that negative connotation when it really has no reason to be negative. It's just, I see what you're saying. Like I'm can't even think of a time when I would use that positively. You're right. You're talking
It's like
about
you avoided an accident in the nick of time. You avoided. It's usually avoiding a bad moment or a bad event. Not I don't even know how you use it. I
well, I
can't think of a way
guess
to
you
use
know
it
what? Maybe
positively.
maybe we're looking at this wrong because if you avoid something bad, that is a good thing, right? You avoid being late to work. You avoid an accident. So maybe that is a good thing. But
I mean, or like I guess you meet the deadline in just the nick of time. Like you get something
sure,
turned in
yeah,
right. So I guess it is a positive thing, but I think it's used to refer to avoiding something negative. If
but
that makes sense.
yeah, but overall, that unit of time that we're measuring goes back to that thing that people had in their house, measuring height and
Well, I guess that's how I picture it when you put nicks in a wall. But it does say it measures time, and that's how I view measuring time. Because
yeah.
like we can look at our son and see when he was barely a year old, and now how tall he's grown as time has gone on.
Sure.
But again, like I said, I guess it was used for sports to track time and points, and I
Okay.
guess transactions made between people. So it's used for a variety of purposes.
All right.
All right, what do you got for us, Jason?
So I'm gonna hop in here with a phrase that I have heard. I mean, on countless times, especially once I became more of an adult. But that is to bite the bullet. So Lisa, if you've got to bite the bullet, what was that about?
So just hearing the phrase, and I don't think I've ever, maybe I've seen it in a movie and it's just kind of gone past me, but I picture it being used um, as a way to like focus your attention on something else. Like if you're hurt and they have to like pull something out of your leg, like a shard of glass or something, they have you maybe not on a bullet, but bite on something to kind of focus your attention to avoid the focus on the other part that's being done. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's actually it. To bite the bullet means to sort of muscle through something.
They weren't biting on real bullets, were they?
Yes. So
Oh, that hurts my teeth just thinking about it.
yeah, well, you know what else hurts? Having a leg cut off.
Wait. So let me get
Guys,
this
I wish
straight.
you could see the look on her
So
face when I said that.
so are we saying that instead of giving someone like anesthesia of some sort back in the day, you would bite on a literal bullet while they would amputate your leg?
Yeah, extreme example, but yeah. So this dates back to
I'm glad for modern medicine.
yes, this is dates back to before modern medicine. We're talking, 1800s and such. And this was military medicine, not modern medicine. So you wouldn't go to a hospital and
And
the
they say,
doctor.
"Here's this bullet, bite on it.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead and get this
but
done."
in military medicine, medical supplies aren't plentiful. But what does the military have a lot of? Bullets. It's the one thing that there's endless supply of.
So we're saying like if you're in the middle of like the battlefield type of thing and you're hurt and they need to figure something out quick, that would be their solution. But it's not like their go-to if they're have downtime and someone's hurt.
No, of course not. No, this
Okay.
is when options were limited.
All right.
When you are strapped for resources, when you're in the field, when there's a grotesque
Accident.
yes, and something needs to be done, it's gonna hurt. And you're right. When you bite down on something, you channel your energy into that. You focus your energy into that, and a bullet is not gonna break. if you were to bite down on something soft, something chewy, let's say a rag or
I think I've seen that more often than not in movies where like they shove a rag and it's just like you're biting down on something to gnaw it.
yeah. So they wanted to give you something that wasn't gonna break. So it provided like this physical, hard, unbreakable object for you to clamp your teeth down and channel your pain and your frustration and everything into that, so you wouldn't feel whatever procedure they were doing on you, because anesthesia was not an option. When you're in the battlefield or even when you're in the tent, I mean, like I said earlier, supplies were limited. Anesthesia is not something you know that was there every time, so they had to distract, right? They had to divert the person's attention from whatever procedure that they were going to, especially when it looks like there's no relief coming, when there's gonna be pain. And I think that shifts into how we use the phrase today, because there is, whenever you use that phrase, there's a certain perception that this is gonna suck, right? This is gonna
Yeah, I
be,
think like when they're talking about like, hey, should I was thinking about enrolling back in school to get a degree. And like, I don't know if I want to do this. And I've heard the phrase being used like, you just gotta bite the bullet and get it over with, right? Because it's gonna suck, like you said. It's not gonna be
yeah,
pleasurable,
it's gonna be,
but the outcome at the end of it is worth going through the unpleasurable moment.
and that's where I think the difference is. Now it's more about overcoming a challenge, or you know, achieving something, a goal, right? When the original purpose was, hey, bite this literal bullet so you don't feel the excruciating pain I'm about to do to you. But modern medicine solved that for us. So now
I like the way it's moved from just a literal to a figurative.
that is some of my favorite phrases that we've covered on this podcast. Things that, like you were saying, used to mean the literal thing, and now they don't. And now it's more of, a less serious
Well, even the nick of time, they were using literal nicking, like
nicks
marks
in the
into
wall. Yeah.
wood in the wall or wood or something that would mark the measure of time. And now we refer to it in terms of like moments in time,
Yeah.
moments in our lives, not necessarily a specific moment in time to mark on a wall.
All right. All right, Lisa, you're up.
All right, so I've heard this phrase before. I feel like it's a phrase that an older generation use. Like I've never used this one, but the word is blackballed. Have
Oh
you
yeah,
ever have
yeah,
you ever used
absolutely.
that one?
No, only because I'm not important enough to blackball anybody. But I do know what it means. It's got a heavy sports connotation. There are certain times when players have with a certain reputation, um, free agent time comes on, and they get blackballed on the market. I have seen that.
So this dates back to the 18th century, and
Okay.
it actually refers to a process of being like banned or ostracized, sorry,
Yes.
from a group.
Yeah. So similar to like we were saying about those athletes, like sometimes they just won't get signed, or nobody will give them a second chance. So yeah, they're being ostracized. They're banned.
So the cool thing I found was that how they used to vote for like entry into like certain organizations or societies and things like that, they would use a process of voting using like white ivory balls or wooden balls, or some would be black. And so when you went,
Like pool balls? I don't know what pool balls are made out of.
I don't know,
Like cue balls?
yeah, I would hope they're not that heavy. I feel like
A cue ball is very heavy.
no, I feel like for this purpose,
Oh,
if there's
this
a
I
group
don't
of
know.
people voting, I'm thinking more like ping pong size, but who knows? But they're like wooden or ivory, and they'd come in the color white or black. And the white balls, when you were voting for, like, let's say that you wanted to join this secret society, we would all be able to vote, and we'd put the color ball. If it was white, it was like, yay, you could join. But if you got even one black ball, you were not allowed to join that organization.
So like people voting yay or nay. This was
Yes,
their
but
yay or
like their
nay.
secret way of doing it.
How was this easier than just writing it down? Like how complicated are these secret organizations when they're all like, Johnson, get the balls. Like you don't have pen and paper lying around.
I mean, this dates back to eight, the 18th century.
Yeah,
So
they had pen and paper. I don't care if the pen had a quill and a bucket of ink next to it. Like
But I mean, I feel like if you have this like maybe like wooden ping pong size ball, I don't think it's like.
Well, secret organizations, they got stuff to do.
But yeah, I thought it was disturbing to a sense that let's say there was like 20 people voting, if 19 of them put the white ball in and one person put the black ball in, that was it. It wasn't a majority. It was if you got one, you were blackballed.
Yeah.
Literally, like you were not able to partake in this organization.
Yeah, so that's how in with as you know, if you're a listener, so I am a middle school teacher. With sixth grade, we do ancient civilizations, and there's a time when we come to ancient Greece, and we look at democracy, and we talk about how how truly democratic was Athens, or whatever, without going too in depth into the whole lesson.
He would talk for hours, trust me.
Yes, it'd be a much longer episode. Um, Basically, we read an article about how they would do this back in Athens, and they would, if somebody was a threat to democracy, they would use this sort of voting system, and they would ostracize them.
And it would be the same way, like even just like one
No,
single.
it was a majority, but it was whoever got the majority. So the majority could be 13 if that just happens to be the number that whatever. Different podcast, different day.
But they would use different color like balls, or how would they do it?
They would write on like
Oh,
pottery.
so they wrote. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's where the
even
writing
the
thing comes from.
ancient
Okay.
Greeks could write. This is why I'm very
So
upset.
they'd write on pottery,
Yes.
like pieces of like clay pottery.
Yeah.
I think the balls are easier.
They didn't have like paper. We're talking ancient times.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. I feel like the balls are easier. I don't have to carve something into a piece of stone or a piece of pottery.
You were just writing on pottery. It's very okay. I think you're focusing on the wrong thing here, Lisa. She's upset.
I think balls are easier to
Hey,
use.
family-friendly podcast, Lisa. Calm down. If we get too far, I have to click a button when I submit this thing that says explicit content.
I'm not the one that went there. But all right. So, what is your phrase?
So my phrase is to fly off the handle. So, familiar with this or no?
Yeah, that that for me that kind of resonates with someone who just like loses their cool.
That's it, right? So this was originally, mid 19th century, describing somebody that losing their temper, right? So in a sudden, uncontrollable way. So exactly what you said, loses their cool, right? So the meaning has been the same.
I'm sure where the fly and the handle come in.
Exactly. So this is why I originally, couldn't find a home for this. So I'm happy it made its way into the Wildcard episode because the meaning for somebody to lose control, lose their temper, is the same now as it was in the 19th century. So the meaning hasn't changed. So where does the actual phrase come from? It comes from axes. So when axes were forged, axes, hammers, things like that, any wooden tool with a wooden handle, they would be attached to the metal, let's say hammer part or axe part.
Same, yeah. The hammers we have at home, like some of them have the wooden, and other ones have just like a full metal one piece.
Yes.
Okay.
So obviously the full piece ones are more expensive. But again, different podcast, different day. So the phrase comes from the mayhem that was caused when one of those things flew off the handle. So when you were swinging
like the blade just flew, like
Yeah.
detached. Oh my gosh, that's so. This is why I have this terrible, terrible. Okay, so terrible fear. I had to somewhat overcome it. When we went on vacation, this past summer, they were doing some axe throwing, and I've never done it before, and I was so terrified because I feel like somehow, well, not only is it gonna fly back and hit me in the forehead, but it could fly off the handle.
Yes. So for those
Why are you
of
giving me
you
a
that
weird look?
because for those of our listeners that want a visual, I'm definitely going to post the picture on our Instagram. Another reason to follow us, once upon a phrase, of Lisa throwing an axe. She did not fly off the handle, but no. So you are right to be scared, right? There is a situation where that could fly off the handle. Same thing, a hammer, it flies off the handle.
I know you love the ones that are one whole piece because they are just more reliable.
I love them, and I spent $20 on a hammer that is one piece because remember at the apartment, and I had the hammer. I had one of those hammers. I was like, metal top, wooden handle, and that thing did fly off the handle. Luckily, nothing happened. It just hit a wall or something. Nothing that broke, so it wasn't a big deal. but I was mortified after that. So when I put it back together, do you remember we have that one hammer that's just like covered in duct tape?
Yes.
That's why. Because that's the hammer that flew off the handle
Why
that
did
one
you
day.
keep? I guess it was
I'm not
different
just
time.
throwing hammers away. Calm down. I'm not made of money.
I know, but if it's defective, it's
It's
defective.
not. I fixed it with the duct tape.
All right, that's why we don't use it when it sits in a drawer and
Oh,
collects dust.
yeah,
But anyways,
But yes, it is definitely sitting in a drawer still. But no, so again, when those things fly off the handle, would it be a hammer or an axe, the unpredictable like damage that could cause is pretty intense, right? And so mirror that to a person, right? When somebody flies off the handle, they're
it's
unpredictable.
Yeah, it's unexpected.
Yeah, and it's
And you're not. Yeah, the
and
behavior you're not used to. It's concerning because you're like, "Oh, okay, what happened? How did it happen?
and it's not how that person usually functions.
Oh, like
Whereas-
that. Yeah, the
whereas
hammer, the
something-
axe. Yeah.
Those are tools used to build stuff, right? When they fly off, they destroy stuff. So, very fun doing a
I
deep
think this
dive
one's
on there.
really cool because I feel like it's almost literal for humans and for these tools. Like
Yeah.
it's the meaning didn't change. We just found a new way to use it, but it's pretty much in the literal way.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool.
Now that we've got that under our belt, let's do the listener request. So,
So this one's pretty exciting.
yeah, I've been waiting to do. I've been waiting to record this episode just to do this listener request. So a buddy of ours, he texted me and he says, "Hey, where do the days of the week come from?" And I thought to myself, "Whoa, I know where the months names come from, but I've never actually thought about the days of the week. Have you?"
No, they've just been what we've been using since we learned how to speak.
Yeah.
So I just don't. They're just the words for it.
All right, so they didn't just make them up. As most things, these have Greek and Latin roots that we'll see. But if I told you that they were named after the solar system, right now with no research, what could you relate days of the week to the solar system? Which ones do you think you could pin down?
I'm thinking Saturday and Sunday, the only ones I think right off the bat. That
Okay,
I can
so
think
Sunday, what do you think that's named after?
Of. The sun.
Okay, easy.
All right. And
Saturday?
then Saturday, I'm thinking solar system Saturn.
Yep. What if I told you to think about them in another language? How do you say Monday in Spanish?
Monday would be lunes.
Okay.
So I'm
Monday.
thinking the only word I can think of that sounds familiar like lunar, but that would refer to like the moon, right?
Yeah, Monday,
Okay.
Moon Day. Right?
It's interesting when you could make that connection.
Right? So you got Saturday, you got Sunday, you got Monday. So any of the other ones ringing a bell?
Nope.
So they would if you spoke Spanish or Latin, really. As I mentioned, they have Latin roots
okay.
and a lot of Spanish also, is based in the language of Latin. So if you knew that Tuesday in Spanish was martes, what would you say?
The other comes Mars.
Yep.
Oh, sweet! I'm on a roll.
You're with me? Wednesday in Spanish is miércoles. Miércoles.
Mercury.
Yeah, all right, Mercury.
Okay.
All right, we're moving and grooving now. Thursday in Spanish is jueves.
I only doesn't have any ring a bell in terms of the way it sounds, but I think J, Jupiter.
Yeah, so even
Okay.
if you just use the letters, jueves or jovis refers in Latin to the Roman god Jupiter.
Okay.
Okay. And then we get that connection there because, jueves and Jovi, Jupiter.
Are all of them based on like a Roman god?
Yeah, I skipped them for the other one, but there's the Roman god associated with, wood is Mercury. There's a Roman god associated. The Roman god of war is Mars.
Okay.
So again, if you know Greek gods, Ares is Mars and Zeus is Jupiter, and right. These
That's
are just
pretty cool that they're all connected like that.
yeah. So the Roman gods here are who the planets are named after, and coincidentally also the days of the week. Right. Where do we? Friday, in Spanish, Viernes.
Okay, just by the letter be Venus, right?
Yes, Viernes is Venus, right? So they're all sort of connected, right? Our days of the week are named after the things in our solar system, but the things in our solar system are named after Roman gods. If de facto, you can make that connection. The days of the week also named after Roman gods.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so
I would have never thought that something as simple as just the days of the week would have such a deep like background in Latin origins and
yes.
Roman gods. Interesting.
So that's why when he texted me and I was like, man, I like the months. I love where the months come from. Like, and you can see the calendar has changed a lot over time, and they add months and things like that. But I never even thought about the days of the week. So it, I really was excited to be able to pin those origins. But that is all for this episode. Once again, wherever you're listening to us, please subscribe, rate, and review. Do all of those things, please.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Once Upon a Phrase. And using Instagram, you can send us messages, leave us comments on any of the listener phrases that you'd like us to explore here on our show.
Yeah, so far, this is episode 4, right? Our listener requests have all come via text. So please use the Instagram page if you don't know us personally. If you do know us, just text us. That's fine. But if you don't, use the Instagram page. And if you're in the Chicagoland area, Fat Chris's Pizza, uh, they're everything. Like
It's so worth it
yeah,
if
I
you're in the
can't even
area.
express that. But thank you for sitting through our first wild card episode. And until next time, bye.
Bye.